buckle up, because this is going to be a real good one.
Was Blake Lively's PR lawyers, the lawyers for the PR company, didn't want full access to what is discoverable between Blake Lively and other celebrities.
And the wild claims coming from the set of It Ends With Us, which I am reliably informed is a movie. Is Taylor Swift to blame? What does she have to do with that?
Actress Blake Lively and her actor husband Ryan Reynolds want to keep their messages with seemingly their A-list friends out of the hands of the public.
Justin Baldoni is not paying his legal bills, which are hefty.
Hollywood's latest legal war is getting ruthless. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are determined to bankrupt Justin Baldoni, using every trick in the book with millions on the line. Shady PR tactics, shocking evidence, and even Taylor Swift caught in the crossfire. This is more than a courtroom battle. It's a full-scale celebrity smear campaign. As legal teams clash, the fight for power, reputation, and revenge is reaching new heights. Who's lying? Who's winning? And who will be left in ruins?
I know this gets overused now, but she did FAFO. Like, she thought she could blame all of her negative press on him. He's a weakling. She's Blake Lively with Ryan Reynolds, her dragon. And she decided, I can't take 1 month worth of negative press, which she got, generated, she says, by him. He says, by you and your badness. And she's so thin-skinned, look what happens to you. Look what happened to poor Jay Cal even on this show. People get picked on when they're in the public eye, right? Like, just Google Megyn Kelly, you'll see terrible articles about me. It's part of being in the public eye. She's just used to being Hollywood's golden girl, and she had such thin skin that after having a couple negative things happen to her for a month, she had to blame him. She decided to blame him, and boy, did she open up a hornet's nest and learn, be careful what you wish for, because now you've got the fight you asked for, and you're not winning.
The feud between Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni has spiraled into a high-stakes legal and financial war. What started as a dispute over It Ends With Us has become a battle of power, influence, and potential financial ruin. With accusations flying and reputations at risk, sources say Lively and Reynolds are determined to bankrupt Baldoni, using every legal and PR tactic at their disposal. As tensions rise, the fight shows no signs of slowing down.
Today, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's legal teams met in court to discuss a proposed protective order marking the latest chapter in their explosive legal feud. And the hearing comes after months of back and forth accusations, leaked evidence, a public relations war that has certainly captivated Hollywood, and I would say a lot of us here on social media and online and everywhere. Now, really quick refresher about what we're talking about here. So we have Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. They starred in It Ends With Us, a film based on a book of the same name. And after filming had wrapped and the premiere had happened, Lively filed a complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, saying that Baldoni and others within his company, Wayfarer Studios, made her uncomfortable on set, that she was harassed, and that Baldoni even sexually harassed her. And she alleges that she tried to voice her concerns, but then they turned around and retaliated against her, and then used a PR and digital team to trash her in the press and on social media. And the whole thing was written up for a piece in the New York Times, who Baldoni then sued, saying that they had trusted Lively's side of the story as fact and had barely reached out to him or his team for comment, and even didn't do the proper due diligence and didn't provide context and the full story. This again, all according to him.
The center of the dispute is Blake Lively's claim that Justin Baldoni, heavily involved in the production of It Ends With Us, engaged in misconduct that harmed her career. However, Baldoni and his legal team are fighting back, arguing that Lively's allegations are not only baseless but part of a larger effort to manipulate the industry narrative.
Hey, look, celebrities are subject to the same standards as everybody else. So just because they're celebrities doesn't mean they get to hide their texts.
Yeah, if I have to turn my texts over in a case and they're very private to me, why shouldn't these A-listers who are text messaging back and forth with Ryan Reynolds or with Blake Lively? And I think the interesting thing here too is, what if they're an A-lister and they're talking about this case,
right?
And they're talking about things that are relevant to this case. Essentially, under Blake Lively's position, they could preclude turning over those texts, which would be very interesting for the other side to see, to evaluate the case. So that could be a problem going forward.
Yeah, and it's kind of an ironic argument for the Lively side, I suppose, because they had no problem disclosing tons of texts I didn't say that right.
That's
Texas.
Texas. Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
Multiple texts
Yes.
between Nathan and Abel.
Right.
And so the PR people for Baldoni. And
Right.
so their complaint is riddled with texts.
If you remember that our jury pool are people that keep us honest here with their comments and their questions. They actually have been asking, why doesn't Baldoni take the same tact and ask for all of her text messages? And so
It's coming.
What you're seeing here is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So
Adding fuel to the fire is Taylor Swift's involvement as one of Blake Lively's closest friends. Reports suggest that Swift has been working behind the scenes to shape public perception of the case, using her vast influence to rally support for Lively. This has only escalated tensions, with Baldoni's supporters accusing Lively and Swift of leveraging their celebrity status to manipulate media coverage and control the narrative in their favor.
Blake Heard is worried about some texts getting out there between her and her high-profile friends. And not just Taylor Swift, there are many other players involved for her and her husband, because Ryan Reynolds is also named in this lawsuit. Taylor Swift, but also Hugh Jackman, Emily Blunt, Gigi Hadid, a lot of A-listers and B-listers. And a lawyer for Team Delulu says there is a significant chance of irreparable harm if marginal conversations with high-profile individuals with no relevance to the case were to fall into wrong hands. Well, I would argue, and so would his lawyer, I think, that Taylor Swift's communications with her former dragon keeper are of high interest and relevancy to this case.
Ryan Reynolds has become deeply involved in the dispute, allegedly using his industry connections to influence key figures in the case. Insiders claim he has taken an aggressive stance against Baldoni, working to isolate him in Hollywood and damage his professional standing, further intensifying the battle.
Ryan was embroiled in the countersuit, with Justin accusing him of swearing and berating him in an aggressive tirade at a meeting at their New York penthouse, where it looks like Blake's wife was present to discuss Justin's conduct. He also claims that Ryan had tried to interfere with the movie script and force out the editors and the composer that he had hired in favor of professionals who had previously worked with him. Now, there are plenty of reactions on social media. Starlight writes, "When it comes to being in the public eye, there's a fine line between love and disrespect. I think it's more difficult to get that respect back once you've lost it than it is to get it in the first place." Another person writes, "Agreed. Divorce will be next, and it will be revealed that Blake is frustrated with Ryan just taking out her troubles on Justin." I think it's interesting because these two got together in a sketchy way. I believe on Green Lantern, Ryan was cheating on Scarlett Johansson with Blake Lively, which quite a choice there. One person likes, "I always liked Ryan Reynolds, but with all this drama, I'm seeing him so much differently. He tries to come across as easygoing, funny, and a regular guy, and Blake is definitely not any of those things."
Baldoni has remained defiant, refusing to succumb to mounting pressure. His legal team, led by the formidable Brian Friedman, is fighting to expose what they believe is a coordinated effort to ruin Baldoni's career. During recent hearings, Friedman argued that the lawsuit isn't about justice but a strategic move to silence a powerful industry voice, further fueling tensions in this escalating battle.
They shared illegally obtained text messages. They shared those together. They concocted a complaint that they filed with the Civil Rights Division. They omitted texts that would have provided context, texts that were in the exact same string that would have provided context of what was really going on. And in fact, they actually removed emojis from texts that show that there was satire and there was joking around by the PR crisis agents. I mean, the PR crisis agent was brought in because actually Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was planting stories negative to Justin. And all Justin wanted to do, and it's all through the text messages. If the New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages, they would have seen it. Justin never wanted to hurt her, never wanted to be negative to her. He wanted to protect the film. He wanted to protect himself, and he wanted to protect her from making negative allegations about him that were made up.
A key aspect of the case centers on Blake Lively's push for additional legal protections for herself and her celebrity allies. Her attorneys have requested an attorney's eyes-only designation for certain sensitive communications, a move Baldoni's legal team strongly opposes. Judge Lyman, who presides over the case, has expressed skepticism about the request, emphasizing the public's right to transparency, adding another layer of controversy to the heated legal battle.
Friedman did this whole thing. I don't see why this case is different just because it's a celebrity to switch the burden. There's already protection orders in place where they can go to court to make those requests and meet and confer. My concern is things get stamped attorney's eyes only on everything, and then we have to the burden comes on us to go to the judge every single time on this issue, which it shouldn't be. And he's right. Basically, that's idea. Like, if everything gets to be stamped attorney's eyes only on things that Blake's being careful of, and then if there's a question that can come, of course Blake's team's gonna be like, nope, sorry. And then Team Justin's got to go to every time a judge and go to complain every single time. Whereas Friedman was making this point that it's like the burden should be on you. There is a place and already happening. If you want extra protection, go request it. You could come to us still, but go request it. And that way the burden is on them. And the way he explained it made so much sense. No?
Yeah, and I also want to add that even the judge made arguments against Lively's team by saying, like, you're trying to protect things from coming out in discovery, but because you have high-profile clients. But guess what? Public clients mean that there's going to be a public interest. And the reality is, if this goes to trial, which is what they're asking for, they want to take this to trial. If this goes to trial, these things will be made public regardless. So what is the point of concealing it now if it's going to be accessible to the public eventually?
The judge's reluctance to grant Lively's request has intensified the drama, with legal experts suggesting the ruling could impact the case's direction. Denied, Lively and her team may have to face damaging revelations they had hoped to keep private, adding further tension to the high-stakes legal battle.
I felt he was very fair. Like, I felt like he was very listening to both. He cut off Friedman at my points, but it almost felt like, because he's like, I got you on that one. I know, for the sake of time, please move on. But what did you think of Lyman?
Yeah, I thought he was very fair. When Friedman was making his argument about how, like, well, they're trying to delay us from getting access to certain discovery because they want to keep it privileged. We didn't have that same privilege when the New York Times got the thousands of documents that they were claiming. And he said, 5 weeks of access, or 5 weeks advance access to these documents before the article even came out. And even the judge kind of came in and he's like, well, that has yet to be proven. We'll wait to see, how long that actually was. And so you can tell that he was kind of making counterpoints for both teams, but he was overwhelmingly obviously in support of fighting back against the claims that Blake Lively's parties were arguing, because they just didn't have strong enough arguments. Like, they were really grasping at straws, and you can tell that the attorneys were even fumbling to make their arguments because even they know how ridiculous they are.
Beyond the courtroom, the battle has escalated into a media war, with both sides using strategic PR tactics. Lively and Reynolds have reportedly enlisted top-tier crisis management firms to shape the narrative, ensuring their perspective dominates mainstream coverage. Meanwhile, Baldoni has turned to independent journalists and online platforms to share his side, pushing back against what he views as biased reporting. As the media battle intensifies, public perception continues to shift.